The Symposium Unheard, Unseen and Unspoken, setting a research agenda for sexual harassment and violence in higher education, was part of the theme week, the detabooing of science and research. It was funded by the Volkswagen Foundation and took place from September 17 to 19, 2025 at Herrenhausen Palace in Hanover, Germany. This gathering was not an isolated event. It was interwoven with 3 other symposia, all supported by the Volkswagen Foundation and all exploring taboos in science and research on topics such as gender and race. We brought together roughly 27 participants coming from or researching in different countries across 6 continents. It was a remarkably diverse group: established scholars, emerging researchers, leaders in the field, graduate students, policymakers, administrators, and activists.
But why did we meet? Sexual harassment and violence in higher education are pressing issues. New cases constantly enter public debates, and a disturbingly high percentage of students, faculty, and staff are affected. Yet, this is not a new problem. It has long existed in academia, and more than 50 years of research documents its persistence.
While preparing the symposium, we faced a paradox. The scholarship on this topic is both deep and rich, yet it often remains unknown or disconnected across national, disciplinary, and activist boundaries. Even within the field, we're too often silenced. This led us to 4 overarching goals. First, to make the invisible visible, to de-taboo sexual harassment and violence in education by naming it openly and creating a space where scholars and advocates can exist publicly in our work. Second, to take stock of the field. As one colleague reminded us while drafting our proposal, we already know harassment and violence are systemic in academia. The question is not whether the problem exists, but rather, what's next? How do we respond? How do we move forward?
Third, to transcend borders. Research often remains limited to single countries. But sexual harassment and violence cross boundaries, and so must our analysis. For this reason, we deliberately brought together participants with local, regional, and transnational perspectives, collectively spanning 6 continents.
Our 4th goal, perhaps most ambitiously, was to build a collaborative research agenda for the future. Scholars, policymakers, administrators, and activists came together not just to diagnose the problem, but to envision pathways forward toward prevention, response, and systemic change. At its heart, this work is collective. Confronting gendered and sexualized violence in academia is exhausting, sometimes demoralizing, even dangerous. But we cannot change entrenched power structures alone. We need solidarity, community, and shared commitment to sustain us and to amplify the impact of our work.